Hello there, and welcome. Go ahead and find a comfortable spot, and just let your body begin to settle. There's nothing you need to do right now except relax and just listen. It's a strange thing that happens when we lie down to sleep. The body is tired, it's ready for rest, but the mind often decides to clock in for its night shift. And its job, it seems, is to be a master problem solver. As soon as it's quiet, your brain believes that this is the perfect time to solve all of life's biggest puzzles. It wants to figure out the perfect thing to say in that meeting tomorrow. It wants to finally understand why that person said what they said last week. It wants to create a 5-year plan or figure out the meaning of a strange dream you had. And underneath all of that frantic activity is a deep, hidden pressure. The pressure to know. We feel like we're supposed to have the answers, that if we just think hard enough, we can figure it all out and finally be at peace. But that pressure to find the answer is often the very thing that keeps peace away. So tonight, we're going to explore a very different and much quieter idea. It comes from one of the first great philosophers, a man in ancient Athens named Socrates. And after a lifetime of questioning the smartest people he could find, he discovered something profound. He discovered that the most profound sense of peace and wisdom comes not from having all the answers, but from becoming truly comfortable with the phrase, "I don't know." So, you don't have to follow along too closely. You don't need to grasp any complex ideas. The goal here is just to let go. Just relax, and let's explore the deep and quiet comfort that can be found in simply not knowing. So, let's start by just noticing a feeling that is so common and so normal that we often don't even realize that we are carrying it. It's the feeling of a certain kind of pressure, a quiet, constant obligation that hums along in the background of our lives. It's the weight of needing to have an answer. From a very young age, we are taught that "I don't know" is the wrong answer. In school, we are rewarded for knowing the capital of a country or the solution to a math problem. At work, we are seen as competent and valuable when we have a plan, a strategy, a clear response to a question. In our lives, we feel a deep need to understand why things happen, to have a clear narrative, a story that makes sense of the past. We are trained, day after day, to be answer machines. We believe, on a very deep level, that to be a successful adult is to be a person who knows things, a person who is certain, a person who has it all figured out. And this conditioning is not a bad thing in our daily lives. It helps us get things done. It helps us navigate a complex world. The problem is, this part of our mind, this inner expert, this answer machine, it doesn't know how to turn off. So when you get into bed and the world goes quiet, it doesn't see this as a time for rest. It sees it as prime time to work on all the unanswered questions of the day. It pulls out its list of all the puzzles you haven't solved yet. Why did my friend seem upset with me? What's the right thing to do about my job? How am I going to handle that big bill that's coming up? What does my future look like? And your mind treats these questions like a test that you are failing. Each question that you can't answer feels like a point against you. And with each unanswered question, the weight gets a little bit heavier. It can feel like a kind of tension in the shoulders or a subtle tightness in the jaw. It's the low hum of effort, of a mind that is still working, still striving, still trying to know. Because underneath it all, we believe that if we just had the answer, we would finally feel safe. If we just knew what was going to happen, we could finally relax. The need for an answer is really a need for control. But for tonight, I want to invite you to just notice this weight. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to answer the questions. Just for a moment, be aware of that subtle, familiar feeling of pressure. The feeling that you are supposed to have it all figured out. It's not a flaw in you. It's not a personal failure that you feel this way. It's just a habit, a very human habit. And the first step to letting go of any weight is to first notice that you are carrying it. So, let's give this part of our mind a name. Let's call it the inner expert. It's a useful name because it reminds us that this part of ourselves is not an enemy. In fact, during the day, this inner expert is our greatest ally. The inner expert is the part of you that gets things done. It's the part that remembers your deadlines, that plans the most efficient route to the grocery store, that thinks through a difficult email before you send it. It's the voice of competence, of responsibility, of adulthood. All day long, it analyzes situations, it makes plans, it solves problems, and we rely on it completely. We are grateful for it. Without it, our lives would be a chaotic mess. The problem is, this inner expert is a workaholic. It doesn't believe in time off. It sees the entire world as a series of problems that it is uniquely qualified to solve. And its work, in its view, is never truly done. So when your day ends and you turn off the lights, the inner expert doesn't see this as a signal to go to sleep. It sees it as a promotion. In its view, the quiet of your bedroom is the perfect, distraction-free office it has been waiting for all day. All the noise of the world is gone. No phone calls, no emails, no one asking for your attention. It finally has the uninterrupted, focused time it needs to get to the really big picture stuff. And so, it opens up its mental files. It pulls out the spreadsheet of worst-case scenarios. It starts running simulations for conversations that haven't happened yet. It creates complex flowcharts of your 5-year plan. It performs a deep, searching analysis of a mistake you made last week, trying to find the root cause, as if your life were a piece of faulty machinery that it could fix if it just had enough time to diagnose the problem. And it does all of this with the best of intentions. Its core motivation is to protect you. It genuinely believes that if it can just think hard enough and plan for every single possibility and solve every single unresolved issue from your past, you will finally be safe. You will finally be invulnerable. But here is the simple, quiet truth that the inner expert, in its eagerness, overlooks. The work it is doing right now cannot be finished. It cannot be won, because it is working with incomplete data. It's trying to predict a future that is fundamentally unknowable. It's trying to definitively understand a past that is gone forever. It's like a scientist trying to complete a grand experiment with half of the ingredients missing. The result of all this late-night work isn't a solution. The result isn't a grand, unifying theory of your life. The result is just the feeling of effort. The feeling of a mind that is spinning its wheels. The feeling of being very, very busy while getting absolutely nowhere. And that feeling, that hum of a mind that is working so hard but can't turn off, that is the very definition of anxiety. So for now, our only job is to simply notice this expert, to see it not as an enemy, but as a very dedicated, very tired employee who doesn't know how to clock out. We can look at it with a little bit of compassion. We can appreciate its hard work. And in a little while, we're going to offer it a gentle and a wise way to finally get some rest. So, this inner expert in our minds, this tireless problem solver, it has been in charge for a very, very long time. It has been running the show since we were children. Its methods are all we've ever really known. Its constant search for answers, for certainty, for a solid plan, it feels like the only responsible way to live. When it starts its frantic work at night, we usually don't even question it. We just assume that this is what our mind is supposed to be doing. But tonight, we're going to receive an invitation to try something different. It's a very old invitation, written over 2,000 years ago, not in a book, but in the way a certain man lived his life. So, I want you to just imagine, for a moment, that we can travel back in time. Not to a complicated, historical place, but to a simple, quiet idea. Let's imagine the city of Athens. The sun is warm. The streets are made of stone. And in the busy marketplace, there is a man who stands out because he seems to be doing nothing important at all. He doesn't look like a rich man. In fact, he's a bit strange. He's often barefoot, and he spends his entire day just talking to people. His name is Socrates. Now, Socrates was not a teacher in the way we think of one. He never gave a lecture. He never wrote a single word down. He didn't have a grand theory of the universe that he wanted everyone to believe. In fact, he had the exact opposite. He had a strange and a powerful habit. He just asked simple, quiet questions. He would walk up to the most important and confident people in the city, the generals, the politicians, the famous artists, the people who were the inner experts of their time. And he would ask them a very simple question. He might ask a general, "What is courage?" He might ask a politician, "What is justice?" And the person, being an expert, would give a very confident, very clear answer. But then Socrates, in his very gentle and very persistent way, would ask another question, and then another, and another. And after a few minutes of this calm, simple questioning, something amazing would happen. The confident expert would start to get confused. They would realize that the simple thing they thought they knew so well, they didn't really understand it at all. Their certainty would crumble, leaving only a quiet and a humble, empty space. Now, Socrates was not doing this to be annoying, although many people found him very annoying. He was doing it because he believed that our certainty, our confident belief that we have all the answers, is actually the biggest trap of all. He believed it is the thing that closes our minds and stops us from being truly wise. And so, his invitation to us, the invitation that has echoed through thousands of years, is this: to be willing to question our own inner expert, to gently turn to that part of our mind that is so sure it needs to figure everything out tonight, and to just ask it a simple question. A question like, "Are you sure you need to solve this right now?" Or, "Are you certain that you have all the information you need?" This is the first step. The invitation is not to find a new, better answer. The invitation is simply to become comfortable with the question. It's the invitation to gently dismantle our own need to know. And in doing so, as we will see, we can find a kind of peace that the frantic search for answers can never, ever provide. So, this strange and humble man, Socrates, who spent his days asking questions instead of giving answers, is at the center of a very famous story. And it's a story that confused him more than anyone else. It's a story that, in a way, set him on the path that we are exploring tonight. In ancient Greece, there was a place called Delphi. And at Delphi, there was an oracle, a mysterious voice that was considered to be the most trusted and truthful source of wisdom in the entire world. Kings and generals would travel for weeks just to ask the oracle a single question. Its answers were seen as absolute, unquestionable truth. One day, a good friend of Socrates made the long journey to Delphi, and when he was finally in the presence of the oracle, he asked a very simple question: "Is anyone in Athens wiser than my friend, Socrates?" The answer came back, clear and without any hesitation at all: "No one is wiser." Now, when his friend came back to Athens and told him this news, Socrates didn't feel proud. He wasn't flattered. He was completely and utterly baffled. It made no sense to him at all. His first and most honest reaction was, "That can't possibly be right. I don't know anything. I am more aware of my own ignorance than anyone." He truly believed this. The inner expert in his mind was silent. He had no pretense of being a wise man. So, he decided that he had to prove the oracle wrong. It was a strange kind of mission. He set out into the city of Athens, not to prove his own wisdom, but to find someone, anyone, who was wiser than he was, so he could go back to the oracle with proof of its mistake. First, he went to a famous politician, a man known for his brilliant speeches and confident leadership. And Socrates began to talk with him, asking his simple, gentle questions. And at first, the politician sounded very wise indeed. But after just a few minutes, it became clear that while the man was very skilled at sounding wise, he didn't really know what he was talking about. His certainty was a kind of performance. He thought he knew many things, but he was unaware of his own ignorance. So Socrates left, thinking to himself, "Well, I am wiser than that man in one small way. He thinks he knows something when he does not. I, at least, know that I do not know." Next, he went to the great poets, the men who wrote the beautiful plays and verses that everyone admired. He asked them to explain their own poems, and he found something even stranger. The poets could write beautiful things, but they couldn't explain the meaning behind them. Their wisdom was a kind of inspiration, but it wasn't a deep, personal knowledge. They too, he realized, were not truly wise. He went to the craftsmen, the skilled artisans who could build and create wonderful things. And he found that they were indeed very wise, but only about their specific craft. The shoemaker knew everything about making shoes, but he mistakenly believed that this made him an expert on everything else in the world, too. And so, after talking to all of these respected and confident experts, Socrates finally understood what the oracle had meant. The oracle didn't say he was wise because he had all the answers. It was the exact opposite. Socrates was the wisest man in the world because he was the only one who was truly, deeply, and humbly aware of how little he actually knew. His wisdom was not in knowing. His wisdom was in his comfort with not knowing. And this quiet, humble space, this freedom from the pressure of having to be the expert, this is the peaceful state of mind that he is inviting us into tonight. So, this is a really important point, because the story of Socrates and the oracle can be a little confusing. This idea of being wise because you know nothing can sound strange. It can sound like an invitation to be lazy, or to stop caring, or to just give up on trying to understand anything. It could be mistaken for a kind of apathy. But that is not what Socrates meant at all. And it's definitely not the kind of peace we're looking for tonight. Socrates was probably the most curious and engaged person in all of Athens. He never stopped asking questions. He never stopped being interested in the world. He was not an empty-minded person. So, let's be very clear about what this knowing nothing really means, because it is the key to unlocking a very deep and a very specific kind of calm. What Socrates was talking about was not a lack of knowledge. He was talking about a lack of false certainty. Think about that inner expert in your mind, the one who is working so hard right now. Its primary fuel, the thing that keeps it going, is the belief that an answer can be found. It operates under the assumption that if it just thinks hard enough and long enough and runs enough simulations, it can arrive at a definitive, certain conclusion about the future or the past or what another person is thinking. It believes it can know. Knowing nothing, in the Socratic sense, is the gentle, humble, and deeply relaxing act of admitting that this is an illusion. It means, first of all, letting go of the pretense. It's the relief of no longer having to act like you have it all figured out. It's the permission you can give yourself to stop performing the role of the expert, especially to yourself. But more deeply, it's about acknowledging the true limits of your own mind. It's looking at a problem your mind is trying to solve in the middle of the night and just gently admitting, I don't have enough information to solve this right now, and I never will. Think about it. When your mind is worrying about the future, it's trying to predict a series of events that haven't happened, that will be influenced by millions of factors that you cannot possibly account for. The honest truth is, you don't know what will happen. And Socratic wisdom is found in just letting that be the truth. When your mind is replaying a past event, trying to understand exactly why something happened, or what someone else's true motivation was, it's working with incomplete data. You cannot get inside another person's head. You cannot rewind time to see all the angles. The honest truth is, you will never know for sure. So, knowing nothing is not an empty, negative state. It is a spacious, open, and honest one. Imagine your mind is a cup. All day long, we try to keep it full to the brim with our own plans, our opinions, our worries, our certainties. It's so full that there's no room for anything else. There's no room for peace. There's no room for rest. The Socratic act of admitting, I don't know, is the act of gently tipping that cup over and letting it empty out. It's the act of letting go of all the half-baked theories, all the anxious predictions, all the stressful certainties that your inner expert was clinging to. And what are you left with? Not a void. You are left with an open space, a quiet space, a space that is no longer struggling, no longer striving to know. And it is only in this quiet, humble, and open space that sleep can finally feel welcome to arrive. So, let's talk about the future. Because more than anything else, this is the subject our inner expert loves to work on in the middle of the night. The future is a vast, blank, and uncertain space, and our mind absolutely hates a vacuum. It feels a deep, instinctual need to fill that blank space with its own stories, its own predictions, and its own elaborate plans. It believes that this is its most important job, and it does this with the best of intentions. It sees the future as a dark and potentially dangerous forest that you have to walk through tomorrow, and it thinks of itself as a loyal scout, running ahead into the darkness, trying to map out every single tree, every single rock, every single potential threat. It's trying to create a perfect, detailed map for you, so that when you wake up, you won't be surprised. You won't be caught off guard. You will be safe. It is an act of love in a strange way. It is your own mind trying to protect you. But let's look at the work it's actually doing. It sits there in the quiet, and it starts to direct little movies in your head. It scripts entire conversations that you might have with your boss. It plays the scene, then rewinds it, changes a line of dialogue, and plays it again, trying to find the perfect script. It becomes a kind of architect, drawing up detailed blueprints for your day, allocating time, predicting obstacles, planning for contingencies. It becomes a fortune teller, trying to guess what other people will do, how they will react, what the outcome of a situation will be. And as it does this, it feels very productive. It feels like very important work is being done. But here is where the gentle, quiet wisdom of Socrates comes in. He would look at this frantic, late-night activity, and he would see a profound and a very simple flaw in the entire process. The scout, our inner expert, who is running ahead into that dark forest, it's working from a blank map. It is making it all up. All of this work, all of this planning and predicting, is built on the false certainty that we can know the future. But the simple, humble truth is that we can't. The future is, by its very nature, completely and utterly unknowable. The conversations you are scripting in your head will almost never unfold that way. The blueprints you are drawing are for a day that will be immediately altered by 1,000 tiny, unpredictable events the moment you wake up. The fortunes you are telling are pure guesswork. And what is the result of all this work? What is the feeling it creates? It's the feeling of carrying a very, very heavy burden. Imagine trying to carry a huge backpack filled with rocks. Now imagine that every single one of those rocks is a what if. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if I'm not prepared? The weight is immense. It creates a physical tension in the body. It keeps your nervous system in a state of high alert, a state of readiness for a threat that is purely imaginary. It is the very opposite of the state of release and surrender that is required for sleep. The inner expert believes it is helping you by carrying this bag. But the Socratic wisdom is in realizing that the bag itself is the source of the suffering. The work of predicting the future is not making you safer. The work of predicting the future is the very thing that is stealing your peace right now. And the comfort, the deep and profound relief, comes from the simple, honest admission, I don't know what will happen tomorrow. It can feel a little scary to say that at first. It can feel like you're giving up, like you're being irresponsible. But try it. Just let that thought rest in your mind. I don't know what will happen. Feel the way it gently releases you from the impossible job of being a fortune teller. You can fire the scout. You can let the architect go home. You are not required to have a map for the forest. Because by letting go of the need to predict the future, you are putting down the heavy bag. You are releasing your mind from its self-imposed, impossible task. And you are allowing yourself to rest in the simple and much lighter truth of right now. So, we have spent a few moments feeling the true weight of that heavy backpack, the one filled with all the predictions and the what-ifs about tomorrow. And just acknowledging that weight, just noticing how much effort it takes to carry it, is the first and most important step. But the next step is the one that leads to true freedom. It's the step where we consciously, gently, and deliberately put the backpack down. The tool for doing this is a very simple phrase. It is perhaps one of the most honest and liberating sentences a person can ever say to themselves. The sentence is, "I don't know what will happen." Now, for the inner expert, for that part of our mind that has been trained to be in control, this sentence can sound like a declaration of failure. It can sound weak. It can sound irresponsible. Its entire job is to try and know, so admitting that it doesn't know can feel like giving up. And for a moment, you might feel a flicker of resistance to that idea. But I want you to invite that sentence into your mind and just let it sit there for a moment. Don't fight it. Don't analyze it. Just let the sound of it echo. I don't know what will happen tomorrow. And as you let it rest there, I want you to notice what happens in your body. It might be very subtle, but you might notice a tiny, almost imperceptible release of tension. The muscles in your shoulders might soften just a little. The tightness in your stomach might ease. It's the feeling of a fist that has been clenched for a very long time. Finally, beginning to open. Because this sentence is not a statement of failure. It is a statement of truth. It is the most accurate and realistic assessment of the future that you can possibly make. You are not giving up. You are simply letting go of an impossible job. You are relieving your mind of a burden that it was never designed to carry. Think of that loyal scout we talked about, the one running frantically through the dark forest of the future. The phrase, "I don't know what will happen," is you, the wise leader, calling that scout back to camp. You're saying, "Thank you for your hard work, but your mission is impossible. The forest is unknowable. Come back now. Sit by the fire. It is time to rest." So let's try this with something specific. Gently bring to mind one of those worries about tomorrow that your mind has been working on tonight. It could be a conversation, a deadline, a simple errand. Just see the little movie it has been playing for you. And now, as you look at that movie, just gently overlay this simple, honest sentence. I don't know how that conversation will go. Feel the way it releases you from the need to write the perfect script. I don't know if I will get everything done. Feel the way it releases you from the pressure to be a perfect productivity machine. I don't know what the outcome of that situation will be. And you can add a small, powerful phrase onto the end of it. And that's okay. I don't know what will happen tomorrow, and that's okay. I don't know the answer to that problem, and that's okay. This is the quiet relief. It's the deep, satisfying exhale you didn't even realize you were waiting to take. It's the peace that comes from surrendering to the truth. You are not required to be a fortune teller. You are not required to have a perfect map of the unknowable. Your only requirement for tonight is to rest. And you can only truly rest when you have stopped trying to do the impossible work of predicting the future. The story of tomorrow has not been written yet. And tonight is not the night to try and write it. Tonight is the night you simply put the pen down. So, we have gently called our scouts back from the dark forest of the future. We have allowed ourselves to rest in the quiet truth that we do not and cannot know what is going to happen. And that can bring a profound sense of relief. But the inner expert, our tireless problem solver, has another favorite playground. If it can't work on predicting the future, it will often turn its immense energy in the other direction. It will become a historian, an archaeologist of the past. It believes that if it just digs deeply enough into the events of yesterday, or last week, or even 10 years ago, it can find the one, definitive, final answer to the question, why? This is a very subtle and a very common form of late-night mental work. Your mind decides that the quiet of your bedroom is the perfect time to conduct a deep and thorough investigation of a past event. It turns into a detective, replaying a conversation over and over again, slowing it down, frame by frame, analyzing the tone of voice, the look in someone's eyes, searching for clues. It's looking for the exact moment when things went wrong. Or it becomes a kind of archaeologist, carefully brushing the dust off of an old memory, a moment of embarrassment or regret, and examining it from every possible angle. It's trying to understand its origins, its meaning, its precise shape. It believes that if it can just understand the past perfectly, it can finally make peace with it. And just like its work on the future, this work feels very important. It feels like you're gaining insight, like you're on the verge of some grand breakthrough that will explain everything. It feels like if you just think about it for 5 more minutes, you will finally understand why your friend was in a bad mood, or why you didn't get that job, or why you said that awkward thing at the party. But once again, the gentle and quiet wisdom of Socrates would invite us to look at the work itself. Is it actually possible to achieve the certainty that the inner expert is looking for? The historian in your mind is working from a biased and incomplete historical record. Your memory is not a perfect video recording. It is a story. It is colored by your emotions at the time, and it is colored by your emotions now. You remember certain details, and you have forgotten 1,000 others. The detective is investigating a case where most of the evidence is missing. And most importantly, a huge part of the story, perhaps the most important part, is completely inaccessible to you. And that is the inner world of the other person. You are trying to definitively understand why someone else did what they did, but you cannot get inside their mind. You cannot know the 1,000 tiny thoughts and feelings that led to their actions. You are trying to solve a puzzle with half of the pieces locked away in a box that you can never, ever open. So what is the result of this endless investigation? It's not a clear answer. It's not a final, satisfying conclusion. The result is just the feeling of digging, the feeling of being stuck in a loop. It's the feeling of a mind that is turning the same soil over and over and over again, hoping to find something new, but always coming up empty. It is another form of struggle. It is another way we keep ourselves from being at peace. And just as we found relief in admitting we don't know the future, we can find an even deeper relief in admitting that we don't, and we can't, fully know the past. It is an act of profound humility. It is the wisdom of finally calling off the search. So, we have seen our minds at work as tireless historians, as detectives of the past, digging and searching for that one, final, satisfying answer to the question, why? We have acknowledged that this is an endless and an impossible task. The evidence is incomplete, the memories are biased, and the most crucial information, the inner world of another person, is forever beyond our reach. And so, just as we did with the future, we can now offer our minds a simple and a deeply calming phrase. It is a phrase that can feel even more radical and even more freeing than admitting we don't know what will happen. The phrase is, I don't need to know why. Let that sink in for a moment. I don't need to know why. For the inner expert, for that part of our mind that believes understanding is the key to control, this sentence can feel like a surrender. It can feel like letting someone get away with something, or like admitting defeat. Our minds are meaning-making machines, and they desperately want a clear and a simple story for everything. To willingly let go of the need for a reason can feel unnatural, almost irresponsible. But I want you to just try it. Just hold that gentle phrase in your mind as a possibility. I don't need to know why. And as you let that idea rest there, just notice, once again, what happens in your body. It is often a feeling of a great, heavy weight being lifted from your shoulders. It is the feeling of being released from a very difficult job. The job of being the world's foremost expert on a past that is already gone. Because this phrase, I don't need to know why, is not a statement of weakness. It is a profound statement of self-compassion. It is an act of kindness toward your own tired mind. It is you, the wise and gentle leader, turning to your historian and your detective and saying, thank you for your diligent work. But this case is unsolvable. I am officially closing it. You are free to go home and rest. So let's practice this with a specific memory. Gently, without judgment, bring to mind one of those past events that your mind likes to chew on at night. It could be a confusing conversation, or a moment of rejection, or a time you felt you made a mistake. Just see it there. Feel the familiar urge of your mind to start digging, to start analyzing, to try and find a reason. And now, just lay this gentle thought over the memory, like a soft, warm blanket. I don't need to have a perfect explanation for why that happened. Feel the way it stops the frantic search in its tracks. I don't need to understand their exact motivation. Feel how it releases you from the impossible task of reading another person's mind. I don't need to know why. And just as we did with the future, we can add that small, powerful phrase onto the end. And I can be at peace anyway. I don't know exactly why that relationship ended, and I can be at peace anyway. I don't know the real reason my boss was in a bad mood, and I can be at peace anyway. This is the gentle peace of letting the past be the past. It's the freedom that comes from accepting that some stories will always have missing pages. Some puzzles will always have missing pieces. And that's okay. You are not required to be the grand editor of your life's history. You do not have to have a perfect, coherent narrative for everything that has ever happened to you. Your only requirement for tonight is to find a little bit of quiet. And that quiet can only be found when you are finally willing to let the unsolvable mysteries of the past remain unsolved. The investigation is over. The case is closed. And you can finally, truly, rest. So, we have gently let go of the need to have a perfect map of the future, and we have released ourselves from the endless task of trying to perfectly understand the past. But the inner expert, our tireless problem solver, has one more area of expertise it likes to work on in the quiet of the night. And this is perhaps its most favorite and its most frustrating puzzle of all, the puzzle of other people. Our lives are a constant dance of interaction with other human beings. Friends, family, co-workers, strangers. And each one of these people has a mind as complex and as private as our own. And so much of our mental energy, especially at night, is spent trying to become an expert on what is happening inside those other minds. It's a very common habit. You lie in bed, and your mind decides to replay a social event from the day. It becomes a kind of secret agent, trying to decipher a secret code. You think about a comment someone made to you, and your mind asks, what did they really mean by that? It analyzes the tone of voice, the look in their eyes, the pause they took before they spoke. It's searching for the hidden meaning, the subtext, the real message that was buried beneath the words. Or it becomes a mind reader. You think about a friend who seemed a little quiet, and your mind starts running through all the possibilities. Are they mad at me? Did I do something to offend them? Are they going through something difficult and not telling me? It creates elaborate stories, complete with motivations and secret feelings, all in an attempt to understand the inner state of another person. And perhaps the most common task of all, it becomes a public relations expert, desperately trying to manage your own image in the minds of others. You worry about what they think of you. Do they think you're smart? Do they think you're funny? Do they respect you? Do they even like you? Your mind tries to imagine what it's like to be them, looking at you. It tries to get inside their head to see yourself through their eyes. And all of this mental activity, just like the other kinds, feels incredibly important. It feels like if you could just crack the code, if you could just figure out what they were really thinking, you would finally feel secure. You would know where you stand. You would be safe. But once again, let's bring in the gentle, simple wisdom of Socrates. He would look at this incredible amount of mental effort, and he would point out the one fundamental and completely unchangeable flaw in the entire operation. You are trying to solve a puzzle with zero access to the puzzle pieces. The mind of another person is the most private and inaccessible place in the entire universe. It is a locked room, and you will never, ever be given the key. You cannot feel their feelings. You cannot think their thoughts. All you can ever see is the outside of the house. You can see their actions, you can hear their words, but you can never, ever know for certain the inner world that produced them. And not only that, but the little bit of information you do get, their words, their tone, their body language, is filtered through your own mind. And your mind is not a clear window. It is a lens that is colored by your own mood, your own insecurities, your own past experiences. If you are feeling insecure, You will interpret a neutral comment as a criticism. If you are feeling anxious, you will see a simple question as an accusation. The data you are working with is not pure. It is a reflection of yourself. So what is the result of all this work? It's not a solution. You never, ever arrive at the satisfying final answer. You are just left with more questions, more theories, more uncertainty. It is an endless, exhausting, and completely impossible game. And the act of playing it is the very thing that creates the anxiety you are so desperately trying to solve. So, we have seen our mind in the role of the secret agent, the mind reader, the public relations expert. We have acknowledged the incredible amount of energy it spends on the impossible and ultimately fruitless puzzle of other people's minds. We have seen that this work, born from a deep need to feel safe and secure in our social world, is a trap. It promises a final answer that it can never, ever deliver. And now, we arrive at the release. We arrive at the gentle, simple, and profoundly calming Socratic truth that can set us free. It is a phrase that, at first, might feel like a defeat, but is actually the key to a quiet and a powerful kind of victory. The phrase is this: I cannot know what they think. Let that sentence land for a moment, not as a problem to be solved, but just as a simple statement of fact, like saying the sky is blue or stones are hard. It is a fundamental law of the universe. I cannot know what they think. The inner expert, our tireless problem solver, will fight this. It will say, but I can try. I can analyze their words. I can look for clues. I have to know. It believes that not knowing is dangerous. It believes that not knowing means you are vulnerable. And it is the struggle against this simple truth that creates so much of our suffering. The frantic effort to do the impossible is what keeps us awake. But what if you didn't have to try? What if you could just accept this one simple limitation of being human? What if you could treat that locked room of another person's mind not as a challenge to be overcome, but simply as a boundary to be respected? Let's feel what this is like in a practical way. Gently, without any stress, bring to mind a person or a situation that your mind has been worrying about tonight. Perhaps it's a friend who seemed distant or a comment from a coworker that felt strange. Just see that person or situation in your mind. And now, notice the familiar urge of your inner expert to get to work. Feel it wanting to start analyzing, wanting to start guessing, wanting to build a story. And then, just as that process begins, I want you to gently lay this thought over it, like a cool hand on a feverish forehead. I cannot know what they are thinking. And we can add another, even more liberating phrase right after it. And that is not my work to do. I cannot know what my friend is truly thinking, and it is not my work to figure it out. I cannot know the real reason my boss used that tone of voice, and that is not my work to do. I cannot know what they truly think of me, and it is not my work to manage their opinion. Can you feel the shift? This is not a statement of weakness. It is a declaration of freedom. It is you, relieving yourself of one of the most exhausting and impossible jobs in the world, the job of being a mind reader. You are resigning from that position. You are turning in your badge. You are admitting, with a deep sense of relief, that it is not your responsibility. When you do this, you release your grip. You let go of the tangled ball of yarn you've been trying to unravel, and you allow other people to be who they are, with their own private, mysterious, and complex inner worlds. You are giving them the same right to privacy that you want for yourself. And in that release, you can bring all of that wasted energy back home. You can take all of that attention that was focused out there, trying to solve the puzzle of them, and you can bring it back in here, to the only mind you can ever truly know, and the only mind you are responsible for calming. This is the great and peaceful relief of letting other people be, and in doing so, finally allowing yourself to just be. As we've been walking down this quiet path together, gently releasing the need to know the future, the past, and the inner worlds of other people, a certain feeling might have started to bubble up. A quiet, but persistent, objection from that very practical and responsible part of our mind the inner expert. The inner expert might hear all of this, and it might say, "This sounds nice. This sounds relaxing. But isn't this just giving up? Isn't this just a fancy way of being passive? If I stop trying to figure everything out, won't I just be a person who lets life happen to them? Isn't this just a philosophy of defeat?" This is a very important and a very understandable question, because the concepts of giving up and letting go can look very similar from the outside. But internally, in the way they feel, they are worlds apart. And the distinction between these two is the final key to understanding the deep and powerful peace that Socrates was pointing toward. Let's imagine you are standing and holding a very heavy, jagged rock. You've been holding it for hours. Your muscles are aching, your hand is trembling, your arm feels like it's on fire. The rock represents one of those unsolvable problems your mind is working on tonight. The problem of how to guarantee a perfect future, or the problem of finding the one true reason for a past event. Now, giving up is the feeling of collapsing under the weight of that rock. It's when your muscles finally fail and you slump to the ground in exhaustion and defeat, but you are still, stubbornly, trying to hold onto the rock. You've given up on the struggle, but you haven't released the burden. Giving up has a feeling of resentment. It feels like a failure. It carries the heavy, sad energy of, "I can't do this anymore. This is too hard for me." It is a passive state of being overwhelmed. Letting go is completely different. Letting go is an active, conscious, and deeply wise choice. It is the moment when you look at the heavy, jagged rock in your hand. You feel the pain it is causing you. You recognize that there is absolutely no benefit to holding it any longer, and you calmly and deliberately open your hand and let it fall to the ground. Can you feel the difference? It is not an act of weakness. It is an act of profound strength and self-respect. It is the wisdom to recognize that your energy, your attention, your peace of mind, these are your most precious and your most finite resources. And choosing to spend them on an impossible, painful, and unproductive task is simply not a good use of your life. So when we apply the Socratic wisdom of "I don't know," we are not giving up. We are actively letting go. When you say, "I don't know what will happen tomorrow," you are not giving up on having a good future. You are actively letting go of the heavy, painful, and useless rock of trying to be a fortune teller. When you say, "I don't need to know why that happened," you are not giving up on learning from the past. You are actively letting go of the heavy, jagged rock of being a detective in an unsolvable case. And when you say, "I cannot know what they are thinking," you are not giving up on your relationships. You are actively letting go of the heavy, impossible rock of being a mind reader. Each act of admitting, "I don't know," is a moment of conscious, deliberate release. It is the wisest calculation of all. You are trading the pain of a pointless struggle for the immense, immediate pleasure of freedom. You are opening your hand. You are letting the rock fall. And in the lightness that follows, in that feeling of a burden finally released, your mind can find the quiet and the space it needs to truly be at peace. So, we have spent a good amount of time now in the world of ideas. We've been exploring these concepts from a man who lived thousands of years ago, talking about certainty and wisdom and letting go. But this philosophy is not just an intellectual exercise. It's not just a clever argument. Its entire purpose, its entire reason for being, is to create a tangible, physical change in how we feel, right here, right now. The real proof of this Socratic wisdom is not in understanding the idea, but in feeling its effect on your body. Because the mind and the body are not separate things. The state of one is always reflected in the state of the other. Think about the physical feeling of your inner expert, of that part of your mind that is desperately trying to know. When your mind is in that problem-solving, answer-seeking mode, what does it feel like in your body? It often feels like a subtle kind of tension. It's a low-level state of being braced for something. The muscles in your forehead might be slightly furrowed, even if your eyes are closed. Your jaw might be a little bit clenched, a sign of a mind that is gripping onto a problem. Your shoulders might be carrying a little bit of a hunch, as if you are physically bracing against the weight of all your unanswered questions. Your breath might be a little bit shallow, a little higher up in your chest, the kind of breath you take when you are alert and ready for a challenge. This is the physical signature of a mind that is trying to know. It is a body that is still at work. It is a body that is not truly at rest. It is a body that is still holding onto those heavy, jagged rocks. Now, I want you to feel what happens in your body when you consciously and gently invite in the Socratic state of not knowing. Let's do this together, very slowly. I want you to take a slow, gentle breath in. And as you breathe out, I want you to silently, in your own mind, say the simple phrase, "I don't need to know right now." Just let that be the entire thought. I don't need to know right now. And as you let that thought settle, I want you to bring your attention to your forehead and just see if you can let go of the need to know. Can you allow the muscles in your forehead and around your eyes to just go soft? Feel the tension melting away, as if a tightly wound knot is finally being untied. This is the feeling of a mind that has stopped straining for an answer. Now, take another slow, gentle breath. And as it leaves your body, just bring your awareness to your jaw. And just for this moment, let go of the need to have a perfect explanation for the past. Let go of the need to have a firm opinion. And just allow the muscles in your jaw to release. You might even let your mouth open just a tiny bit. This is the physical feeling of a mind that has stopped arguing with reality. And one more time, a slow, easy breath in. And as you breathe out, bring your attention to your shoulders. Let go of the need to predict and control the future. Let go of the weight of all those what-ifs. And just feel your shoulders becoming heavy. Feel them sinking down, away from your ears. Feel them releasing a burden they were never meant to carry. This is the physical feeling of a mind that has surrendered its impossible job. This is what knowing nothing actually feels like. It is not an idea. It is a physical sensation. It is the feeling of softness. It is the feeling of release. It is the feeling of weightlessness. It is the feeling of a body that has finally been given permission by its own mind to truly, deeply, and completely let go. So, we have felt the shift in our bodies. We have felt the quiet release in the muscles of the face, the jaw, the shoulders. We have experienced the very real, physical sensation of a mind that has let go of its need to know. And what is left behind? When all of that effort, all of that striving, all of that mental clenching is gone, what is the state that remains? It is a state of emptiness. And I know that word, emptiness, can sometimes sound a little bit scary. It can sound like a void or a nothingness. But the kind of emptiness we are talking about here is not a cold or a lonely one. It is a warm, a peaceful, and a deeply welcoming emptiness. Think of your mind for a moment, as it usually is at the end of a long day. It's like a small, cluttered room. In one corner, there's a huge pile of worries about the future. In another corner, there's a dusty box full of old regrets from the past. The desk is covered in half-finished plans and scraps of conversations you keep rereading. The air is thick with the noise of your own inner narrator, constantly commenting on everything. It's a busy, noisy, and a very crowded space. And it is very, very difficult to find any real rest in a room like that. The work we have been doing tonight, the gentle Socratic act of admitting, "I don't know," has been a form of tidying up. Each time you let go of the need to predict the future, you are clearing out that pile of worries in the corner. Each time you let go of the need to understand the past, you are putting away that dusty box of regrets. Each time you let go of the need to know what others are thinking, you are clearing off that cluttered desk. And now, what is left is a different kind of room. The room is the same size, but it feels so much bigger. It is simple now. It is quiet. The air is clear. There is nothing left to do here. There is nothing to organize, nothing to analyze, nothing to fix. There is just an open, peaceful, empty space. And this is so important, Because sleep is not something that you can go out and get. It is not something you can hunt down or capture or force into submission. The more you chase it, the faster it runs away. It's much more helpful to think of sleep as a very shy and a very gentle visitor. It's like a timid animal that you would love to have come and rest in your garden. You cannot run at it, shouting for it to come to you. That would only scare it away forever. The only thing you can do is to create the conditions for it to feel safe. You can make sure the garden is quiet. You can make sure there are no loud noises or sudden movements. You can create a peaceful, welcoming environment. And then you simply sit and you wait patiently and without expectation. And if it feels safe enough, it might just emerge from the shadows on its own. This quiet, empty space that you have created in your mind right now, this is that garden. You have done the work. You have gently cleared away all the noise, all the clutter, all the frantic, problem-solving energy that would scare away any chance of rest. You have tidied the room. And now, your work is done. You have created the perfect conditions for your shy visitor to arrive. You have created an open, a silent, and a welcoming space. And your only remaining task is to simply inhabit it, to just be here in the quiet, to rest in this gentle emptiness, and to trust that when the time is right, and when it feels safe enough, sleep will arrive all on its own. And so, we have arrived here. We have walked this quiet path together, gently tidying up the cluttered room of the mind. The worries about the future have been released. The regrets from the past have been let go. The impossible puzzles of other people have been set aside. And we are left in this calm, open, and empty space, the perfect garden for our shy visitor, sleep, to feel welcome. And you might think that our work is now done. And in a way it is. But the inner expert, our tireless problem solver, often has one last, final, and very sneaky problem that it wants to solve. It is the most personal and the most immediate problem of all, the problem of how to fall asleep. Even after letting go of everything else, the mind can, in this last moment, turn itself into a new kind of expert, a sleep expert. It starts to monitor your progress. It asks, am I relaxed enough yet? Am I doing this right? Why am I not asleep yet? How long has it been? It turns the act of resting into one final performance, one final test. And the moment it does that, it begins to stir the mud in the water all over again. The effort of trying to fall asleep is the very thing that pushes it away. So, we come to the final, and the most important, application of our Socratic wisdom tonight. We must let go of the need to know how to get to sleep. We must be willing to be a complete and utter novice. We must be willing to say, one last time, I don't know. I don't know the secret to falling asleep. And I don't need to. Because the truth is, you don't. Your conscious, thinking mind has absolutely no idea how to fall asleep. It is a process that is far too deep and far too ancient for your inner expert to manage. The only part of you that knows how to fall asleep is your body. It has been practicing for your entire life. It needs no instruction. It needs no help. It only needs one thing from you, for you to get out of the way. And so, this is how we do that. This is the final, gentle act. We take all of that curious, problem-solving energy that is left, and we give it the simplest, the quietest, the most boring job in the entire world. We give it the job of just feeling one single breath. This is not a breathing exercise. You are not trying to achieve anything. You are simply letting your attention rest on the physical reality of the breath you are taking right now. Just feel the air come into your body, and feel the air leave your body. Maybe you notice the gentle rise of your stomach, and then the gentle fall. There is nothing to figure out. There is only this simple, repetitive, physical sensation. And when a thought inevitably appears, a thought about sleep, or about tomorrow, or about anything at all, you do not have to be frustrated. That thought is not a failure. It is just the mind doing what it does. You can look at it with the gentle observer's mind and just say, thinking. And then, as kindly and as patiently as you would guide a lost puppy, you just gently guide your attention back home, back to the simple, physical feeling of your breath. You might have to do this 100 times, and that is perfectly okay. The goal is not to have no thoughts. The goal is to simply and gently keep returning to the breath, because each breath is a perfect, tiny lesson in the wisdom of not knowing. You do not have to tell your body to take the next breath. It just arrives, all on its own. And you do not have to know when sleep will arrive. It will arrive when it arrives. Your only job is to rest in this gentle, unknowing state, trusting that your body knows exactly what it is doing. So let this breath, the one you are feeling right now, be the final, knowing breath of the day. The final breath that you are consciously thinking about. And with the exhale, let go of this philosophy, let go of these words, and let go of the one who has been listening. Let yourself dissolve into just the simple, rhythmic, unknowing sensation of breathing, and allow that quiet rhythm to carry you, gently and without any effort at all, into the deep and the peaceful rest that you deserve. And so, we come to the very end of our time together tonight. The last word has been spoken. The last idea has been explored, and now, all that is left is the quiet. The voice of Socrates, the gentle questions of an old man in Athens, can fade away now. His work is done. The invitation to let go of knowing has been delivered. The voice of your own inner expert, that tireless and dedicated problem solver, has finally been given permission to rest. Its ledger is clear. Its office is closed for the night. Its work is done, and the voice that has been speaking to you, my voice, can also fade. It was only ever meant to be a quiet companion, a gentle hand to hold as you walked this path toward stillness. And now that you have arrived, its work is also done. So let it all dissolve. Let all the words and all the ideas and all the philosophies become indistinct, like the soft, murmuring sound of a river in the distance. They are no longer needed. The only thing that is needed now is this moment. This simple, quiet, empty space. There is nothing left to figure out. There is nothing left to solve. There is nothing you need to know. There is only the gentle, rhythmic feeling of your breath, moving in and moving out. An ancient and a simple tide that needs no help from you at all. Your only work now is the work of non-doing, the work of just being here, being still, being quiet. Just allow yourself to rest in this unknowing, in this peace. The wisdom you were searching for is not in an answer. It is in this quiet. It is in this breath. It is in this rest. So just rest now. Just rest.
you.